Hello and welcome to a Prescotian's Guide to Prescot. As you are about to see, Prescot has a long and fascinating history. This film is dedicated to all Prescotians, both past and present, who made this town what it is today. Prescot stands proudly between the townships of Liverpool and St. Helens, a place which Prescotians take pride and visitors take pleasure. In 1445, Henry VI granted it to the College of St.Mary and St. Nicholas, which later became King's College, Cambridge. As Cambridge was so far away, they appointed the Derby family to oversee the running of the manor. So began a long association between the Derbys and the people of Prescot. One of the privileges that the people of Prescot enjoyed as tenants of King's College was the right to their own court, known as the Court Leet, which was embodied in the Prescot Charter of 1447. Prescot also adopted King's College, Cambridge's coat of arms. This one is above 8 Vicarage Place and was taken from the old town hall. Of course, the focal point of the town has always been the Church of St.Mary. The church is the fourth to occupy the site since the 11th century. The dedications of the older buildings were to All Saints, but after the reconstruction of 1610, the church was dedicated to St. Mary the Virgin. The nave, the main body of the church, the nave roof, dates from 1610, and the roof is one of the finest Jacobean black and white roofs in the country. It is inscribed with the names of Sir Thomas Bold and his wife, Lady Bright. The list of rectors and vicars goes back to 1179. The church has a number of interesting features. I'd like to introduce Jessie to tell you about some of them.
The arms box is an interesting old box, but we haven't got a date for this, but it is very old, probably at the time of building the church, or may even have been from the previous church. We're not sure at all about that. But the figure here is of John Oldham, and and John Ogle was the Lord of the Manor of Wiston. He had a great deal to do with this church and a lot to do with the building of this chancel. He died in 1612, and he was one of the men of the Crusades, fought at the Crusades, and was a very wealthy and noble man of the time. The dress is Puritan style, probably the type that they wore at that time. This font is Italian marble font, and it was given by the Willises of Halsnid in 1755. And this is where John Kemble, the playwright, was baptised in the 17th century. But it is Italian marble, and it was at the back of the church, but it is used more now at the front here so that everybody can see.
Here we have the wedding of Gary Anders and Christine Bradley in 1986, being conducted by the Reverend Peachel. We are now in the bell tower. Here are the peal of 8 bells, cast in 1845 by Mayers. The bells and clock have been out of action for a few years, and you are in fact listening to a recording of the bells. The Church Preservation Society are at the time of filming trying to raise something like £250,000 to bring the bells, clock and the rest of the church back to the former glory.
We are now in the belfry where the famous 8 bells were always rung. Sadly today they're not rung. But this here is a plaque in memory of Walter C. Finney, who rang the church bells here for 61 years. He was my grandfather. And this is a photograph of the bell ringers. The last bell ringers, and this is Mr. Finney, my grandfather. The other photograph here is of an older group, but Mr. Finney is still on there as well.
And here we have the fruit of everybody's labours.
Here we have a scene from the 1950s. Here we have King George V playing fields in the 1950s, known locally as Brown's Field.
There's been many a tussle fought over the years on the football pitch between the two local football teams, Prescot Celtic and Prescot Rangers, and they've still got the scars to prove it.
Today we'll recognise that the opening show for the Prescot Carnival this afternoon was the Dingle show. They're just doing a bit of a warm-up at the moment, so they're going to be with you very shortly. Those of you that haven't got a good match spot around the arena, I suggest you get there over the next 5-10 minutes or so.
This is the Prescot Carnival for 2010.
This map shows the Elizabethan town, a century or so after the end of the medieval period. This is the earliest known map of Prescot. The circular nature of the churchyard is a strong indication of a Celtic settlement. Fall Lane is now High Street. Newgate Street is now Eccleston Street. Sparrow Lane is now Grosvenor Road. In 1592, the marketplace was the focus of the town's trade and civic life. Copholt Lane is now Kemble Street. Prescot collieries had existed since 1723, the earliest commercial coal mining being carried out on the Prescotian estate to the south of the town. Some of the coal was transported in carts and sold in Liverpool. To make transportation easier, the road was turnpiked in 1726. Prescot had a thriving pottery industry in the 18th century, with various excavations in the 1980s confirming this. The main industry in the 18th century was of course clock and watch making, which Prescot became world famous for. We are now at Prescot Museum in Church Street, which was opened in 1982 and was the first museum in the country to be based on clock and watch making. The golden age as far as Prescot is concerned is between 1750 and 1850. I can only show a glimpse of it here, but it is well worth a visit, as the whole history of Prescot clock and watch making is chronicled. The museum also puts on various other exhibitions of interest throughout the year. The museum puts on ever-changing exhibitions on a wide variety of subjects, and we were lucky enough to be filming at the time of one of the best exhibitions that have been put on at the museum, and that is the fascinating world of the music box and the history of music making by mechanical means. Here we have a reproducing grand piano by Weber, made about 1921. These were able to reenact the actual playing of the maestros of the day. Although there is no longer a watch and clockmaking industry in Prescot, there is still one shop that keeps close links with the past. The watch and clock repair business, St. Helens Road, with its oldie world charm facade and authentic interior is well worth a visit. Mr. Bayman had been the proprietor for many years, but at the time of filming he was in semi-retirement, and Mr. John Jessup was handling most of the business, which also now included the repairing and selling of jewellery. We now come to Our Lady Immaculate and St. Joseph R.C. Church. It is a Victorian church in the Gothic style, built of red sandstone in 1856 by J.A. Hanson, inventor of the Hanson cab, and students of architecture from Cambridge University regularly visit Prescot to inspect his work. We are now walking down the area known as the Wood, a winding medieval passageway bounded by sandstone walls.
Very good, man.
The main street in Prescot for centuries has been Eccleston Street. Here we have a glimpse of it in the 1950s. There have been a number of changes since then. Eccleston Street was formerly known as Newgate Street and Fountain Street. The latter, probably, because of the regular flooding of the cellars along its length. This is an interesting building, the only half-timbered building in the town. They say one gable is authentic, dating from around 1614, while the other one is a Victorian copy.
We welcome you to the Prescot Centre. We invite you to look around. We feel sure you won't be disappointed, for there's so much for you to be found.
One of the most exciting projects of the late 80s and early 1990s is the Prescot Centre shopping complex. It has really transformed the town and given it a new lease of life. The concourse inside was named Timewell Court, as the magnificent centrepiece truly reflects Prescot's glorious past as the centre of the clock and watch trade.
Here we have Professor Prescott, helping to promote the town in the early 1990s.
Just as important to the town is the £1 million Civic Hall, which caters for every social need. Prescot has had 2 cinemas in the town. Here's the old Limehouse Cinema, which was opened in 1922. It was a grand ornate theatre. It was at its peak in the 1930s and 40s. Unfortunately, with the introduction of the TV, its popularity declined, and it followed the same route as others around the country, i.e. it was turned into a supermarket. Here is a row of Georgian buildings. The Advice Bureau was formerly the old post office, and also the site of Prescot Free Grammar School. Legend has it that the cannons outside the Dean's house came from Nelson's flagship Victory, and that Captain Hardy once lived for a time in a house at the corner of Mill Street. Here's the original site of the cenotaph, before it was moved to its present site in the church grounds. Like everyone else in the country, Prescot honours the brave men and women of the 2 World Wars, and also later conflicts, who gave so much for their country. So every November a remembrance service is held in their memory.
The reading is taken from the Book of Wisdom, chapter 3, verses 1 to 9 included. But the souls of the virtuous are in the hands of God. No torment shall ever touch them. In the eyes of the unwise, they did appear to die. Their going looked like a disaster, their leaving us like humiliation. But they are in peace. If they experience punishment as men see it, their hope was rich with immortality. Slight was their affliction, great will be their blessings be. God has put them to the test, proved them worthy to be with him. He has tested them as gold in a furnace, accepted them as a holy book. When the time comes for his visitation, they will shine out. As sparks run through the stubble, so will they. They shall judge nations, rule over peoples, and the Lord will be their king forever. They who trust in him will understand the truth. Those who are faithful will live with him in love, for grace and mercy await those he has chosen. We now make our act of remembrance. Let us remember before God and commend to his sure keeping those who have died for their country in war, those whom we know and whose memory we treasure, and all who have lived and died in the service of mankind. They shall grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
In 1333, the rector and lord of the manor, William de Dacre, obtained a charter for a Monday market and fair, and we are still carrying on the tradition in a small way, as every year, on Shrove Tuesday, a fortnightly market comes to town, locally known as the Mug Fair. In 1811, a roundhouse was built, round the base of which country folk placed their baskets of butter and eggs, etc., on market days. In 1859, however, this and the stocks nearby were pulled down, and a market hall was built to provide a regular indoor market. It too has long been demolished. This is the old town hall, built in 1755. It provided accommodation for the court leet on the first floor, with shops underneath. It unfortunately fell into a bad state of disrepair and was demolished in the 1960s, despite efforts from various local groups to get it preserved. Here we have an aerial shot of Prescot from the 1940s. In the centre you can make out the old town hall in Market Place and the market hall at the top of Sewell Street. One quaint custom that used to happen was perrying. By once a year, new courtly jurors were sworn in, following of which they made their way to the town hall, whereby heated pennies were tossed out of the window to the gathering crowd below. In former days, this money represented a levy on each person who did not attend or wanted to be excused from attendance at the court. We are now in Kemble Street. Its first recorded names were Cocktolt Lane and Hillock Street, but it was renamed Kemble Street after the 18th century Shakespearean actor John Philip Kemble, who was born in Prescot in 1757 when his parents were visiting the town with a travelling theatre company. John and his sister, Mrs. Siddons, who was also a respected actress, both commemorated on cenotaphs in St. Andrew's Chapel, Westminster Abbey. We now come to the Bingo Hall, which in its glory days was known as Prescot Picture Palace. It was an alternative attraction to the Limehouse. We are pleased that at least the old seating upstairs and the ceiling is preserved, as it would be such a shame to lose these. Here we have the Wesleyan Methodist Church, built in 1909. It is said that the great John Wesley preached in Prescot in 1768. This is the Flat Iron House, so called because of its peculiar shape. It was built in 1890 for use by the Lancashire Watch Company. It is also believed that this was the site of Prescot Playhouse Theatre, built in the late 1500s. The Lancashire Watch Company was set up in 1889 in Albany Road because the traditional cottage workshops could not compete with the fierce competition of Switzerland and America. It was a major employer at the time. It operated until 1910. The building was also used as barracks during the First World War. Also, Tinglings, the printing and bookbinding organisation, operated here until the 1970s. They too were another major employer. It now houses a number of smaller businesses.
Here is Prescot College in the 1980s. It was formerly Prescot Board School.
Prescot Grammar School, or Free School, was founded in 1544 through a bequest being made by Gilbert Latham, Archdeacon of Man. The first school was sited in Church Street. It moved to High Street in 1759. In the 1920s, the school acquired part of the Yew Tree Farm estate, St. Helens Road, from the Earl of Derby. The new building was opened in 1924. It went co-educational in 1975 when it amalgamated with the Girls' Grammar School. The Royal Hotel used to stand on the site next to where Croxford's dental surgery is now based. It is said that it was also used for stabling when the hotel was a coaching station. It closed in 1930. Prescot once had its own fire station, situated at the old Prescot Urban District Council Yard in Grosvenor Road. Prescot has had its own paper from way back in 1859, when the Prescot Reporter and General Advertiser was first published. It cost a penny for 4 pages. Special mention in Prescot's history must go to its football club. The man who has done more to document and spread the word of Prescot Football Club is local man and president Bert Taylor, or Bon, as he was known as a sports writer for the Prescot Reporter. The club was founded in 1884 by members of Prescot Cricket Club, whose ground they shared at Slacky Brew, Warrington Road, until 1903. Then a dispute developed. They had to buy new premises, which they did in 1906 at Hope Street. In 1929, they became Prescot Cables, in recognition of the support by the local B.I.C.C cable making organisation. Some notable players who went on to bigger things: Jack Bamber of Liverpool and Leicester, and Eddie Kiltshaw of Bury, Sheffield Wednesday, and Derek Hennin, who won an FA Cup winners' medal with Bolton Wanderers in 1958 against Manchester United. Since the time of filming, they have reverted back to Prescot AFC.
The St Helens Road, Warrington Road Junction has seen some changes over the years. In the days of trams, a terminus was set up at the King's Arms. The first tram line was opened in Prescot in 1902.
Here we have a scene from the 1950s showing the old King's Arms and Edwards's. The King's Arms was demolished in the 1970s and replaced by the Fusilier. Prescot used to have a number of walking days and fetes. This one was in the 1950s. The procession would wind its way around the town and usually end up in Knowsley Park. The parish rooms used to be next to Clegg's Laundry in Warrington Road, and has had many different functions during its proud history, such as a part-time picture house, accommodating various parish organisations, and of course
the lively dances and bands, ranging from the George Ruffley Jazz Band of the 30s and 40s through to the rock and roll bands of the 50s and 60s. The Royal Oak car park area was the site of Garth's car mill around about 1908. Here we have the council offices in the 1950s. They were built on the site of Sackley House, a Georgian building owned by the Evans family. We are now in the passageway known as the Poorhouse Ways, probably so called because of Prescot's connection in being one of the first parishes to provide houses and poor relief for its inhabitants, as parishes were supposed to have done under the Poor Law of 1601. There are a number of leisure activities you can do in Prescot, besides boozing, etc. We are now in Eaton Street Park, or as Prescotians know it as, Prescotian, which in the summer months also accommodates Crown Green bowling and pitch and putt golf. Prescot has also got its own swimming pool. The Scotch-born pool was opened in July 1973 and has both main pool and learner pool, sauna and cafeteria. We also have our own leisure centre, which was opened in 1983 and caters for a wide variety of activities, both sporting and social. In 1984, the grass soccer pitch was replaced by a synthetic floodlit all-weather area. The Salvation Army was founded by William Booth in 1878. They've had a number of sites in Prescot since moving here around 1887. The Army bought the empty and derelict church in Warrington Road in 1958. The Army moved in there in 1959. A new building was erected in 1970 after the old building was destroyed by fire.
So far, I've not mentioned any of the main employers of the town since the 1890s, apart from the Lancashire Watch Company and Tinlings. The Prescot Family Laundry was established around the turn of the century by Edwin Clegg of Bolton. They first did general family laundering, but later branched out into industrial workwear laundering. They operated from Warrington Road until the 1970s, whereupon they moved to new premises, equipped with the latest machinery to Stony Lane, Wiston.
Blundell's Files and Tools Limited was set up by James Blundell of Gattaca in 1864.
With James's son William becoming managing director, they eventually moved to the present site in Pottery Fields in 1919.
that it? Good lad, nice big smile, come on.
By far the biggest contributor to the shaping of Prescot, and indeed many outlying towns, is of course the British insulated calendars cables of the good old B.I. At its peak it employed something like 8,000 people. James and Jacob Atherton founded the company in 1890. They acquired the British rights to an American patent for paper insulated telephone and electrical power cables for use in lighting, driving machinery and tramways, etc. They became self-contained with their own copper and aluminium mills, wire drawing and cable making plants. They also had their own foundries. We are now at Prescot railway station, which was opened to goods in 1871 and to passengers in 1872, and was run by the London and North Western Railway Company. Here we have a photograph taken in 1919 when the steam engine was king.
This segment was filmed in 2010, and the B.I.C.C. is just a distant memory. We now have the Cables Retail Park, which in itself is a fine complex, but there are some people who believe it is to the detriment of the main town centre of Eccleston Street. I'll leave it for you to decide. Lord's Kiosk was another familiar landmark. Planners are now investing in various small business parks around the town, and hopefully Prescot has a future in both the manufacturing and service industries, and thus supply valuable employment.
Few people who have brought credit to Prescot include Alan Jackson, the DJ, who never failed to sing the praises of Prescot at every opportunity he gets.
rather silly from the likes of Rolf Harris. Mind you, I say silly, Two Little Boys has got its own message, hasn't it? You'll have to excuse me for a minute or two now while I play the next record, simply because I've got one or two things to say about my hometown to one or two people who might remember the days of, well, big factories and bustling, hustling local shop centres. I'll be back with you on the radio after the next record. Well, Prescot may have lost a little along the way, but hopefully it's still got a lot of pride about itself, which is why the lads who are making this particular film now are hoping that people who watch it will smile a little along the way and still be proud to be known as Prescotians. I certainly am. My record's about to finish, so I've got to get back to the BBC. Nice to talk to you. And there, a nice little something from the likes of the Beatles. Four marvellous lads. You're with Alan Jackson, this is the BBC. What we were doing in between those records, I wouldn't like to say. But maybe one day you'll find out. Hey?
In recent years, Prescot has seen many changes, some good, and in the case of local industries, some bad. We are interested in Prescot, how it was and how it will be. To this end, we hope that everyone concerned with the town can work together for the future of Prescot. Goodbye.
I'll love you always, though we've had to part. I'll never forget you. You're here in my heart. Why did it have to end? Fate I can't comprehend today.